Go ahead.
Oh, the first one in front.
The first number 9? Yeah, thanks for specifying. First number 9. Other questions? So, in number 9, says point P is inside ABC and equidistant from points A and B, in which the following segments must P be located. So, it says point B is inside ABC. It says it's equidistant from points A and B. So if I put P here, these two are supposed to be the same length, even though they don't look like it. Pretend that they do. Which of the following segments must P be located? So it's equidistant from those two. Now it tells us point P is inside ABC. So notice I didn't just draw a point P wherever I wanted, I put it inside. So the first choice is, it says where does point P need to be located? So the first choice was, could it be on AB? So could it be on this line? Not if it's inside the shape. So that one's out, so letter A is out. Letter B, the perpendicular bisector of AB. So perpendicular bisector of AB. So remember, perpendicular bisector, it cuts this into 2 equal pieces and then it's perpendicular. That might be a possibility. We'll talk about that in a second. The mid-segment opposite AB. So the mid-segment would be, mid-segment cuts these into 2 equal pieces. And then the perpendicular bisector of AC. So perpendicular bisector of AC. So it's trying to decide which of these it should be. Now, I'm going to draw this specifically. I guess I should probably have done this to begin with. So if I draw it as each of these choices, so I already eliminated choice A. B, I'm going to talk about in terms of, because let me eliminate C, C right now. So if it was here, we don't know for sure that those two are the same distances. So C is out. Drink in a second here. So the two options is either on the perpendicular bisector of AB or AC. So I'm going to draw it on the perpendicular bisector of AB. So this is a tough question as I'm writing it. So if this is point P, if it's on the perpendicular bisector, basically we have 2 equal angles here. So these two have to be the same for AB. So I think it is choice B. And then D we can throw out. I'll try to show an exaggerated version of this. So we have AC over here. The perpendicular bisector would be here. So if this is point P, we don't know for sure that these are the same distances. We don't know that. So it has to be B. That was a tough question. Now, before we test this chapter, I do actually want to go back and do that problem again that we did at the end of class yesterday. I realized I messed that one up way worse than I thought. So actually all of those things were possible. We'll go back and look at it. I figured it out in my second class, so we'll come back to, so understand that sometimes when I go over things here, I'm not always perfect, so I apologize. So I made a mistake yesterday. We'll talk about that though later, so we won't worry about it today. So I'll get you guys the notes. And then you guys look at the warm up. And we're going to learn 2 more parts of a triangle today. Take a minute on those, and then Mr. K will go through that with you guys once you guys have a little bit of time here.
How do you make it?
What's that? So once you're like on a color, then you can click that and then just the skinny one. Yeah, I always feel like it makes my handwriting look better when it's the bad one.
You guys all ready? Or
A little bit more time. Okay, I'm trying those first 2 for the warm up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like this. Remember midpoint. Next part's gonna seem like totally out of left field, but it'll make sense later on. Another minute. Okay, some of you guys are done, and then others of you are waiting, which is fine.
So to start off, we need the midpoint formula. Does anyone have that?
You guys know that formula. What did you do instead? Maybe ask that question too.
If you don't know the formula, how do you start the? Yeah.
X1 plus X2 or divided by 2. And then the next one is Y1 plus Y2 divided by 2.
All right. So then, what do you do after the formula? How do you plug it in?
I put an X.
All right. 2 plus 6 over 2, and then 5 plus 1. And just always remember that if this is x1, then this has to be y1. Then what was your final answer?
4, 3.
Yep. All right. And then how did someone start off this problem here? Yep.
I did 2/3 times 12.
Yep. So just what I always do, I just think of these as variables, such as like an x or a y. So then that's right, 2/3. Then 12 is CD. That'll equal 24/3, which will equal 8. Any questions on this? All good? All right.
Thank you. Don't let those fractions scare you guys. A lot of times these numbers do work out pretty nicely. And just a reminder that the 12 is like a 12 over 1 that we're looking at there. and you just multiply the tops and multiply the bottoms. So this isn't cross multiplying here. So we're going to use that 2/3 a lot today. We might use the midpoint. I don't know for sure if we'll get to that part of it, but I thought it was good for us to review it anyhow. So this 2/3 is going to come up a lot in our lesson today. So that's when we practice that as our warm-up. So yeah, so let us know if that was a struggle or as it comes up that we talk about that. So we're talking about two new lines in triangles today. They're medians and altitudes. So we'll talk about those two. We'll start with medians here today. We might actually even do a little bit of our chart, like our end of chapter chart, because after today, we're gonna have all the different lines that come up in this chapter. So I think we have, I think it's 5 total types of lines that we've learned. So kind of, they're probably starting to kind of get mixed up. So hopefully we can break them down here today. So median is another type of line. Now, don't get this confused with mid-segment. So we talked about mid-segment earlier in the chapter. Now we're going to talk about median. And in this case, this median is CD. So in this line, CD is our median. And what the median does is it connects a vertex over to the midpoint of the opposite side. So it connects a vertex, this is the vertex of the triangle, like a corner of the triangle, to the midpoint of the opposite side. So median, kind of, again, try to keep that separate in your head with mid-segment. Now, when all the medians come together, there's something called the centroid. It sounds like some sort of like outer space thing, like very exciting. Centroid. Not really all that exciting, but actually it does kind of do some cool math things with the centroid. So kind of, if I had to pick my favorite center of a triangle, centroid would be my favorite because of all the cool patterns that show up with it. Like, I kind of think it's kind of wacky sometimes that things in math get figured out even. Like, I mean, the fact that someone went and figure out that this has this relationship is really, really kind of like math cool, like, you know, dorky cool. But. So we have point P here is our centroid. And they always use P for the center, I don't know why. So P is our centroid. It's where all the medians come together. So all the medians intersect with the centroid. So all the medians come together at point P. Now this is where this is kind of crazy and like again, somebody figured this out and this always works this way with the median. So in this shape, like, so I'll use just one of the lines as an example. So this line BL, every time we find the centroid, that point P is 2/3 of the way down the line, and the rest is 1/3. So that 2/3 rule that we just talked about in the warm-up is from here. So BP, so the whole, the short part of the line, this BP here, is 2/3 of the whole line. So BP is 2/3 of BL. And so I'm going to draw that over here or someplace else. So like, if you want to kind of like take this line and we're just going to draw it up here. Just to show you kind of like outside the triangle. So if I B, P, and L. So what this point P does is it divides this line into parts. So this is 2/3, and then what would be left for this part? 1/3. So point P does that to every one of these lines. And so someone, long time ago, before we had the internet, they were bored, and they sat and looked at this and noticed this, which is kind of crazy, and I guess, like I said, kind of crazy cool if you like patterns and that kind of thing. The same thing happens, though, 3 different times in this drawing. So I'm going to do the same thing with this CJ line over here. So, oops, that should be C. So the vertex to the center is going to be 2/3. So this is going to be 2/3, and this is going to be 1/3. Again, this only works with this median, or this centroid. So when you're trying to remember which one does it, you're going to be like, which one's the really cool one? It's the centroid. So that's the one that. Same thing with this AK. And so again, if you're trying to figure out where the 2/3, obviously it hopefully looks longer. The 2/3 should be double the length of the 1/3, but it's always the distance from the vertex to the center. So in this drawing, there's a whole bunch that we're going to be able to figure out if they give us just a little bit of information. So we're going to do this example down on the bottom here, talking about a centroid. Now, the way we know it's a centroid is because of all of these little marks. All these marks, all these congruent parts that we see that these are all the midpoints, we know it's going to be a centroid. Or when you see the word median, you should always think 2/3. So when you see the word median centroid, this is going to be the one that does this with the 2/3 and 1/3 rule. Oops, sorry. Yikes. It's not. Come back. There it is. All right, so they have a couple of things labeled for us. They tell me UJ is 9 units. That's here, is 9 units. VJ is 3. And then ZT is this whole way across is 18. I'm not going to label that right now. I'm going to wait on that. So I'm going to start by looking at, I'm going to probably go a little bit out of order. Actually, no, I'm not. So I'm lying about that. So if I have this information, so I'm going to draw that green one across the middle there. I'm going to draw it on the outside just so you're not confused about what's going on here. So I have this 9, and this is U, J, Y. I might have just changed my mind. I think we're going to wait on this one, so hang on to that one. Leave it there, though. Let's actually start with ZT. Let's start with ZT. So Z, T, and then J's in the middle here. What do we know about ZT? What do they tell us about ZT? The whole thing is 18. So the whole thing is 18. Let's start there first. So this whole thing all the way across is 18. Now, centroid medians, we think 2/3, 1/3. So I want to figure out, first of all, there's a 2/3 and 1/3 like split here. So what do you guys know? come up with some of this. Well, first of all, which part's the 2/3? Where's the 2/3 gonna be? Yeah.
CJ.
ZJ is gonna be the 2/3. So 2/3 of this whole line is gonna be here. So that means that this other part is the 1/3. I actually think 1/3 is easier to find than 2/3. Do you guys agree? Yeah, what's a third of 18? 6. So what do I know? JT is gonna be 6. So I can write that over here that JT is 6. Is everyone okay with that? Because that's the 1/3 part is gonna be 6. Now you could do 2/3 of 18. Otherwise, what do you know about 1/3 compared to 2/3? What's that?
They add up.
They add up. So they add up to the whole. Oh, that's a really good way to think about it. I wasn't even thinking that way. So what are you saying? So if we have 6 here, it'd be 12. It's kind of our leftover. This would be 12. Or what I was kind of trying to get at, but I like what Ellen did instead, was that if I have 6, a third doubled is 2/3. So a 6 doubled is 12. But she did subtraction, multiply by 2, however you guys want to go about it. But this one's going to always be half of that one. So we know that ZJ is 12. JZ made me think of the funniest post I saw yesterday was someone wrote like, so Kanye's not winning like the election, like, so no, Kanye didn't win. So if you're voting, you're going for Kanye. No, he's out. All right, sorry, totally sidetracked there. Okay, so is everyone okay with the 2/3, 1/3 on that? Okay, so let's go back to this green one. This one's still a little bit tricky. So what part is the 9? Is that the 2/3 or the 1/3? It's the 2/3. It's the longer part. 2/3. So how are we going to find that other part? Think about this one. See if that helps you. Okay, what do you think, Dustin? Yeah, it's half of that, because if I have 2/3 and I have 1/3, 1/3 is only half of 2/3. So I can divide 9 in half, which isn't super nice, but that's going to be 4.5. So not terrible, but reasonable. Taking something in half isn't too bad. So YJ is 4.5. Now, do I know YU? If I know those two parts, yeah. Yeah, you just add those together. So that's going to be 13.5. Very good. All right, and then the last part here. We have S, V, and J, and they tell us the JB is 3. So is that the 2/3 or the 1/3 part? The 1/3, that's the shorter part. That's from the edge, the center to the edge. So in order to figure out the 2/3, what am I going to do with this number? Yeah, we can double it. So this is going to be 6. So SJ is going to be 6. And then this whole thing will be 9. So that 2/3, 1/3 idea is definitely like a good one, but it's going to be like tough to kind of come up with. We're going to practice this a little bit more with a Kahoot in a little while. So actually, we're going to skip the next example. We might come back to that. I don't know. I think every year I try to debate whether or not I'm going to throw that in. It's kind of maybe a nice to do thing if we have time. But, so skip that next example for right now. Oops, I went too far. All right. The next one is one you've probably seen before. when you guys find the area of a triangle, which you guys probably did in middle school quite a bit, area of a triangle, you use the altitude. Altitude is, and you've heard altitude, if you've ever flown in an airplane or you've ever been on a mountain, they talk about the altitude. And that's how high up we are. So the altitude is how high up the triangle goes. So it's like the height of the triangle. Now, we're not gonna write it that way because it's gonna be a more mathematical explanation, but the altitude in this case is BD for both of them. So BD is our altitude. And the altitude connects the vertex, and then it's perpendicular to the opposite side. So we take our B, we connect it to the opposite side, so we go straight down. Just like if you're putting like a tent pole in your tent, you wanted the tent pole to go straight down into the ground. So from B, it just drops straight down. I think they call that like a plumb line, like in like if you were doing construction or something, straight down. But the same thing happens in this triangle, that's an obtuse triangle. So if you look, this triangle is actually like that. The altitude is if I go straight down. So even though that's off our triangle, the altitude can be outside the shape. And so again, that's probably called the height of a triangle when you found the area. So we do base times height divided by 2. The height is that altitude. So it must be perpendicular, that's really important. We also call this the height of the triangle. Like just like if you, like I said, if you've ever flown in a plane, and like even if the plane is flying like this, they're gonna talk about the height straight down. They're not calculating how far the plane has flown. It's gonna be straight down. So if we drop something out of the plane at that point, hopefully not anyone, but it would go straight down, hopefully, unless it's really windy. All right, so then I'm gonna tell you guys the ortho center is like the, the middle child, the forgotten center of the triangle. It's the least interesting of the centers. It really doesn't do anything interesting, which sometimes makes it easier for us because you don't have to remember anything about it. And sorry if you're a middle child, your parents love you. But like the ortho center is kind of like that not very interesting thing. So if I ever ask you something about the ortho center, it's not going to be a very tough question. So it's where the altitudes meet. So it's the intersection of the altitudes. Typically I tell you, oh, this is like exactly the same distance, or we use that equidistant word, or we learn the 2/3, 1/3 rule. Nothing interesting happens in the ortho center. All right, so I actually am gonna have you guys fill out a few things in our charts. I think our chart's gonna help us for our Kahoots. Not that our Kahoots all that, I want you guys to do well on it, but the chart's gonna help you in terms of just being able to keep all these separated. So I'm hoping that we have time here. We probably won't fill this whole chart out, but we'll get a chunk of them done here. What's it? Some back for Miss Miller and some back for Drake, and yeah. So I basically want to get these on here and get a few marks on here. If we don't write everything about the shape right now, we can always add to this. another day, but I want to like kind of get some marks on here just to remind you guys the difference between these different types. So those of you guys at home, this chart is online as well. Okay. So again, I just want to kind of, maybe the main points of these that you guys can kind of write down to distinguish between them. So the big ones are the mid-segment, like, so I put the words that are ones I definitely want you guys to know in just regular font, and then the italicized ones, the words aren't as important as what the concept is. So that makes sense. So like, I don't need you to rattle off, this is the circumcenter. I need you to know, if you see that drawing, what you know about it. So again, with these, let's just kind of sketch them up a little bit here. So mid-segment, remember, it connects the two midpoints. So DE is half of AC. So when you see the word mid-segment, DE is half of AC. So this is one we learned on Monday. Now the perpendicular bisector, I kind of had second thoughts on my drawing here. I'm going to draw it a little bit differently. I'm going to show it, yeah, I'm going to show it a little bit differently. This is the one from yesterday. You guys recall that one. So if it's a right angle here, those two are equal and those two are equal. We'll draw it on the triangle another day, but you guys can draw that in. So it's got to be perpendicular and it has to bisect. So I would probably just draw it in the other box and we'll deal with the one there next time, or maybe on Monday. Now perpendicular bisector and circumcenter go together. So this makes that. So those two are written together for intentionally. So this is the one that the distance back to all the center or all the vertices is the same. So OZ equals OX equals OY. So the distance from the center back to all the vertices should be equal. So these two go together and we'll watch out for that. That was from yesterday. I feel like the weeks go fast because that makes it feel like Monday was like forever ago. Like, right? I don't know. Maybe the weeks go really slow for you, I don't know. So then angle bisector is the one where we take a point and then it connects back. It goes perpendicular to each of these. And then these two are equal as well. So those angles are equal. So we have two equal angles down here. So this is equal to that. And so angle bisector and in-center go together. And so if I have the angle bisectors here, all of these like little angles are equal. Sorry about the circle there, it's the best drawing I could find in flip art. But then, so all those are little angle bisectors. Then if I take point D and go straight back to the other side, this is probably getting a little too jumbled at me. If I take point D and go straight back to the side, remember that perpendicular distance, all of those little distances should be the same. So I'm gonna call that, so DE is gonna equal DF, is gonna equal DG. Sorry. Our new one for today is the median. That's one of our new ones. So it takes point B and it connects us to the midpoint of the opposite side. And then you can try and remember this as the favorite one, centroid. And some of you guys might read favorite as difficult or not, 2/3 and 1/3. So, like QB is 2/3 of QU, and UV is 1/3 of QU. So a whole bunch of those cool relationships show up there. Again, math school, not like real people cool. Alright. So when you guys are ready, flip it over. Again, I'm hoping this sheet's going to be helpful as you guys do your homework, but also your Kahoot, just to kind of keep all these squared away. So flip it over, we have altitude, which you can just draw that altitude in. So the altitude is basically that height of that triangle. Now, just a heads up, it doesn't always have to be straight up and down. It could be kind of on its side or something like that, depending on where, because there could be 3 heights of the triangle. But most of the time we'll see it, it'll go straight down. The same thing out here though, it might be outside the shape. And then remember, orthocenter is the one that no one talks about. So, sorry. I always say middle children have fairness issues. You middle child. I'm sort of a middle child. I'm not really, because my parents are divorced, so like I have an older brother who's a full sibling with me, and then I have a half sister, but I never lived with her, so I was still like always a baby. But with my dad, sometimes I have fairness issues with, because he definitely babies her. It doesn't get better as you get older. We all just get more bitter. So orthocenter, not very interesting. So okay, so we are going to do a Kahoot. It's going to have to do with all of these. So you probably want this chart out. You also might want a calculator or scratch paper or whiteboard if you prefer, because there's going to be a few that you have to do some solving. So this is basically the last 3 days in review. Yes. Your dad is like, he's okay. How about in your house though? Your brother, oh, whatever. She's always busy. It's funny you say that. I actually got lost on a trip when I was a little kid. Like I was lost in Florida on the beach. And I was like 5. And my parents had just gotten divorced, and so I didn't know what our name, like what name we were at the hotel, and so yeah, I was sunburned, I was lost. It was, yeah. They lost me. Oh, yeah. And I should point out though that I did throw a tantrum and walk away from my mom, so it might have been my fault. So I'm just gonna like maybe put that out there. May have been a bit drama queen. I said, fine, I'm going back to the hotel, I was like 5 or 6.
Even though you didn't know what that was.
Right, yeah, or I didn't know my last, or like the last name we were registered under. Sorry, guys, those of you online, this isn't gonna be live, but you can kind of play along, just working through the problems. Or you fast forward, we'll never know. Yeah, you probably want your purple sheet out as you guys do this, with what's saying. Oh, interesting. Okay, so Pennsylvania is a big one, because that has a lot of, like, and so that one, holy cow, that's not even close. I've heard it. Yeah, but I've heard of Wisconsin and Michigan go Biden, then Biden wins, but I've heard Pennsylvania can be the swing state.
So Wisconsin's just big cities.
Yeah, and look how close that is. I mean, when we talk about people not voting, 20,000 people could decide, you know, like Wisconsin. It's so crazy. I mean, 20,000 is not a lot. Like, it's less than 1% of the state. Like, because the number of people that have voted for the independent party person, that's like 1%, and that would have been enough for whoever, if they would have chosen to vote for one or the other thing. What's that? Yeah, no, Mickey Mouse usually, yeah. I thought Kanye would at least like hit some like in, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm glad to know that people aren't actually voting. I also saw like there was a sign that there was a dog, a picture of a dog, and it said, "Vote for Todd. Todd likes cheese," and it's just like this dumb-looking dog. And I was like, kind of like, Todd looks okay. Like, vote for Todd.
Or mayor, mayor.
Yeah.
I think you're he's involved with a lot of stuff.
So you didn't act like, yeah, so.
He's just like,
Is everyone in? Yeah. Okay. All right, we'll get going here. Hopefully time is okay. Sorry, you don't have to read that. That's fine for me to know. Solve for X. Sorry. Yeah, check my scratch paper directions.
oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah. 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 Right. Oh my gosh.
I was seeing Jake.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's
So he
unreal.
has like school and my birthday.
Yeah, so you're definitely, that's like middle child to the max.
Yeah.
Alright, so we set these two equal. You had to distribute this 3 and it became 12x minus 3. And then you had to solve those equations for x. Okay, so they're telling us it's the medians. So think about what you guys know about medians. And then they tell us XS, this is 2.5. They want US. So again, sorry, medians.
Oh, I forgot, we didn't talk about that, but that's like so good.
I don't think we have a ton of time on this one, guys. Can I take a good guess? Okay, so guys, on this one, sorry, time should be a little bit better on this one. So if this is 2.5, oh. This is 2.5, they want US. If this is the median, that means this is the midpoint. So these are each 2.5, so that's 5. So kind of watching out for that. Sorry, I should have given more time on that one. I just didn't think the math was that long, so. All right, I think this next one's not a math question, but hopefully one you know. If you need a lifeline, I think all of you guys should be good on this one. Yeah. All right, so another median problem. They want CW. We know CY is 5. All right. So I'm guessing that one was just a quick response here. So CY is 5. They want CW, which is this one. So again, it's a median. So I know you try to answer fast, but make sure you're trying to be accurate as well. This one gives you a minute and a half, so hopefully I have enough time.
I know, I'm just a little surprised.
What's that?
Yes, I know. I'm so
Yeah,
surprised.
I mean, Pepper, and he really learns. I mean, what do you say? They so in spring. Careful guys, this one's telling you about an angle. So ACB is 10x minus 10. They tell us it's an altitude. Think about what you know about that angle.
Yes.
This thing, so that glass spring, you can think about 6 feet low. They're like, my kids did, I don't know. Yeah, they're cheap, but. Yeah. I mean, so much fun Google now, it's nice. You're safe. You're fast. Like, well, over their back, all the time, like, through this today, and they just, kind of breaks. Now, like, just with the speed. You see, virtual, that's so bad. It's so nice.
I was at like.
We were talking about that yesterday. I feel like surprise, the kids have been off that are about, I don't know why. But. All right, so what did you know about that angle? It's 90 degrees. So we know this angle should be 90 degrees, so we have to set 10x minus 10 equal to 90. So I don't know if those guys who did that wrong, you add the 10 over, oh yeah, you subtract the 10 instead. So you should be adding it over to self. The premise of the movie is that characters enter a video game. One of my kids' favorites.
This is the new one. They completely ripped off the new one.
Yeah, so the old one was like a board game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so annoying because they use the exact same name. Like,
Yeah.
There's no changes whatsoever.
Yeah, that's true. And that was Robin Williams, and like, we love Robin Williams, but yeah. Yeah, they could have called it like, yeah, they should have called it, yeah, something, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would have looked for that.
Obviously, this triggers you.
Alright.
We know where you stand on this one.
We did. That's triggers. You are good at that. She called my trigger last night. She texted me, so.
All right, so BD, so this one going through is what two types of segments. So that BD going through the center there, diagonally to the right, you might want your chart for this.
Oh, shoot, I messed that up.
How does it get me?
That's what I did. Isn't it?
Oh, I put it right in.
What do you call it?
I mean, it is like, it's gross, there's parts that are gross.
Yeah,
So with like your.
yeah, so my husband and I, but yeah, like, okay. No, I'll write that down.
Yeah.
So BD here, so if you notice, it cuts this into 2 equal pieces. So we know that already, so that has to be a median. So it's a median. And then if you notice, the 2 angles are also bisected. So it's a median and an angle bisector. Uh-oh, Corin took the lead on that one. All right. So JH, so it's the same drawing, but JH goes to the middle, like down to the right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think this year they're talking about being virtual, but so JH here. So JH cuts this into 2 equal pieces, but it also is perpendicular. So perpendicular and it's a bisector. I'm trying to think if it could be anything else. Mid-segment, we wouldn't know that it's equal on the other side. Altitude, it doesn't. These two have to connect to a vertex. Careful there. Ooh, that was a big lead change there. So CE, it's gonna be the same drawing again. So CE is this one. A feel-good family movie is Peanut Butter Falcon. It's about a man who wants to be a professional wrestler, but he has Down syndrome. It's the cutest. It's like total Peanut Butter Falcon. That's gonna be his wrestler name.
Maybe bisectors on the.
It's so cute. I think it's on Netflix. I think so.
Oh my gosh, what is it? I gotta read it.
Yeah, like your kids. Yeah, you, like Lexi would love it. And, yeah. Peanut Butter
Oh,
Falcon.
peanuts,
Yeah.
butter.
All right. So CE. So if you look, CE doesn't really have any marks at all. Kind of just floating in the middle there. Maybe it's an angle bisector, maybe it's any of these things, but if it doesn't have marks for us, we can't make any assumptions. Lots of lead changes here. It's anyone's game. Hoping even if you're not a musical fan, this is pretty straightforward. I thought the choices were not. You didn't know cats founded our country? What? It's Hamilton. So C is the circumcenter. So circumcenter, remember, think 2/3, 1/3. Not circumcenter. No, sorry, I'm lying about that. It's not centroid. Circumcenter is the one that goes with perpendicular bisectors. Oh, there's not much time on this one. Sorry, I should have fixed that. You have to guess. Quick guess. Sorry.
I guess right.
Okay, sorry, I should check the time on there. All right, so circumcenter means it's a perpendicular bisector, so that means it bisects this side, so these are each 6. Sorry, bad timing one. Hopefully that didn't wreck any of you guys. The leaderboard stays the same, makes me feel a little bit better. So these are all midpoints. They want the length of AH. They tell you AB. Has anything changed? No. I feel like they'll all of a sudden just, they'll all change at once. It's not like you're counting, you know, that 1% of the vote. All right, guys. So this one cannot be determined because if they give you AB, AB is here, AH has no, so AB would tell us this side. This one has nothing to do with AB. A little bit of a lead change there, a leaderboard change. Same drawing, so GH is 18, find BC. Oh shoot, that's wrong. That should be 16. Sorry, GH is 16. Sorry. That changed your, sorry. GH should be 16.
No.
No, sorry, that should be 16. Sorry, you guys are always like guinea pigs. I apologize. All right, yeah, sorry. Okay, I think our last, is it the last book? Not a math question. Hopefully one you just know. Oh, sorry. So So the first time this movie series came out was 1977. The last movie in the series was 2019.
I watched all of them.
On one day. It's actually like, that's a commitment.
I think Star Wars was in the 60s.
I'll tell you that I was not alive when the first one came out. Sorry, never mind.
Thank you, Mrs. Downey. I was already in first grade.
I was born 2 years after them.
Not anymore.
You're the only one.
All right,
Just here.
Harry Potter's not quite that old.
I'll bite your ankles off.
Sammy, only one wrong. Good work. So Riley and Dawson as well, top 5, come up for snacks. Here, over here, like a obstacle course. We have one classic, tell you guys this already, they get mad because the Pop-Tarts are whole grain. Yeah. Apparently whole grain Pop-Tarts are not the same. Yeah. Yeah, you can remember. All right. Oh, yeah, I did, yeah.
I'm thinking once Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia are full, it's gonna change a lot of things. Yeah. Because pretty much Biden's got all the states.
Okay, so we'll finish up with this last example, then you guys have the rest of the time for homework. Hang on to your purple sheet though. We will address like the purple sheet in the next few days as well. But we'll finish up with this last example and then if we have time, we'll come back to the graph. Like I said, I think I always end up tabling that and deciding not to use it. But. So we have AB in this drawing. Now, right now, AB, we don't know anything about it. There's nothing that, I don't know what type of line AB would be. However, once they add a little, so each of these is telling us something about AB. And so, or about the drawing, and that might change our opinion on AB. So each of these is a separate problem. So just that you guys are aware, so they don't like connect to one another. So the first one says if CB equals BD, what kind of line has AB just become? Which type of line? So there's perpendicular bisector, angle bisector, median, or altitude. So 4 choices there. So if A connects over here and those two are equal pieces, what is it going to be? A median, yep. So it connects from the vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. This is a median in this case. That makes sense because it vertex, midpoint of opposite side. Now you have to pretend like you don't know that. So now we're going to erase that. So the next part is a totally like new part of this. Okay? And then like we didn't know that at all. The next one says AB is what to CD? What does that mean again? Perpendicular, very good. AB is perpendicular to CD. Now again, don't use anything from part A. What do we know about AB that it has to be? What do you think? Yeah. Altitude. Why is it not a perpendicular bisector? Because it has perpendicular, right? Yeah. Yeah, we don't know anything about the bisect. Now, had these two been combined, yes, then it would have been. So this would be, almost wrote it, altitude. Because it connects the vertex to it's perpendicular to the opposite side. And then finally, probably guessing what this one is. CAB is equal to DAB. What does that one have to be? Angle bisector. Let me just double check that there's no graphing homework in here. Like now that I took that graphing problem out, I did want to make sure that graphing's not part of it. So I think we might have to alter it a little bit. Let me see. You guys can skip 8. Oh, actually, you can skip 8, 9, and 10. So even better. So I'm going to change this to 3 through 7 all. 3 through 7 all. Should be able to do. Then 13 to 22 should be doable. And then yeah, that last part should be fine as well. So 3 through 7 all instead. Okay, got to stop the recording. Not that, hopefully they're not still sitting there waiting, sorry.